We're working on short staff this week, so we're actually going to start again with a little clip here, and I'm going to make sure we got the volume up for this one too on the computer. But if you want to hit that, Riley, that'd be wonderful. We're getting there. First little video clip, we can bring it up. That'd be great.
In Cana of Galilee. And it came to pass that all the wine was drunk. And the mother of Jesus said unto the Lord, They have no more wine. And Jesus said unto the servants, Fill 6 water pots with water. And they did so. And when the steward of the feast did taste of the water from the pots, it had become wine. And they knew not whence it had come. But the servants did know, and they applauded loudly in the kitchen. And they said unto the Lord, How the hell did you do that? And inquired of him, Do you do children's parties? And the Lord said, No. But the servants did press him, saying, Go on, give us another one. And so he brought forth a carrot, and said, Behold this, for it is a carrot. And all about him knew that it was so, for it was orange, with a green top. And he did place a large red cloth over the carrot, and then removed it. And lo, he held in his hand a white rabbit. And all were amazed, and said, This guy is really good. He should turn professional. And they brought him on a stretcher, a man who was sick of the palsy. And they cried unto him, Maestro, this man is sick of the palsy. And the Lord said, If I had to spend my whole life on a stretcher, I'd be pretty sick of the palsy too. And they were filled with joy, and cried out, Lord, thy one-liners are as good as thy tricks. Thou art indeed an all-round family entertainer.
All right, we're going to stop right there.
And there came...
if you want to see the rest, look up Rowan Atkinson, Jesus Wine on YouTube, and you can find this too. That's really bright. Can everybody hear me? Okay. It was interesting. Found this clip actually a few weeks back when I was looking for something else, and it kind of hit me with this. The message today. We're talking about participating as producers, and partly to understand what that means, let's talk about what is it that we tend to think we are. Right? In the early church, people were what we call participants. In fact, Paul in 1 Corinthians, let me bring that up. Okay. He said, what I want you to do, he says, when you gather for worship, each one of you be prepared with something that will be useful for all. Sing a song, click on there. Sing a hymn, teach a lesson, tell a story, lead a prayer, provide an insight. Right? When the early church got together, where did they get together? They got together in homes, right? They didn't have big gathering places, or they didn't rent school buildings. They just got together in each other's homes. In fact, when you read Paul writing, he says, to the church at Bridget's house, or at Phil's house, or wherever it is that they happen to gather. And so everyone would gather and everyone would share. In fact, it kind of reminds me of when I was in a class on world religions. I had to go to another service, and Christy and I went to a Buddhist service, and it was in a home, and it was really interesting because everybody was very participatory. They also were very hopeful that we would stay much longer. But it was a very interesting experience. And the early church was much more like that. But then when Constantine became emperor and Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, things changed. Now they were in basilicas, they were big gathering places, and it was kind of expected that everybody would be there. Where before people came because they felt that what it was about was what they wanted, that a place where they could connect, where they belonged. And now it was sort of that, everyone better go because the emperor does this, right? And so it changed from this participatory thing where everybody participated to where you had someone who led it all, and they were paid. They were professional Christians, who would lead everything, and everyone else was there just to kind of receive. And as we went into modernity, as we talked about some weeks back, it went from this heart experience to even more deeply into the head. It was an intellectual thing. Now, when postmodernity hit, and people kind of got back to that participatory and wanting to have this real experience, churches saw people leaving, and so they tried to do things to connect them. And so they kind of did the Rowan Atkinson model of, let's do things that will entertain people and bring them in, right? I mean, think about Jesus. How many people do you think came to see Jesus because it was a really good show, right? I mean, they didn't have TV, they didn't have, all the things that we have. They didn't have the internet. And so Jesus was a great show, and people often came to that. In fact, he had to sometimes say, look, is this what you're here for? You come here just because I gave you bread last time, or is there something you want that's deeper? And so as a church, we started embracing. We started doing things to entertain people and bring them in. In fact, I remember one of the illustrations when we were looking at the idea of what it means to be a seeker church, that often the seeker model is this idea of that it's like a cruise ship, and we're trying to invite people to come on. And eventually we understand that there were the people working the ship, but for people coming in, it's like coming on a cruise. And what's a cruise about? Right? Entertaining, enjoying yourself. And, I'm saying that it's a very different thing what Jesus was about. It was about this community where people were real, and where we walked together and we supported each other. The problem is we're coming out of this consumer mindset. So how do we, where we consume things? We're going to talk about being participants, or people who produce, saying that we have gifts to offer, right? Now, it's interesting to me because, we still struggle with this. Like, I remember Kelly Fryer. How are we doing? I mean, still working on things. Thank you. Kelly Fryer once talked about this. She said, people would come to her and they'd say, it's an older couple, they just retired. They said, we want you to do, we want to have a recent retirees group at the church. And she said, great, go ahead and start one. I said, no, we don't want to start one. We want you to provide a seniors group for us to come to. He said, no. He said, if you want to have it, he said, you can meet, we'd be glad to sit down with you, help you to do it, but, it's free. He said, no, we want you to do it for us. And I think it's really hard for us to get out of that idea that, that this is a place we come just to receive. In fact, when we first started, we had a lot of folks who came in, they've been connected with other churches, and they said, which is wonderful, but they, after being here a few months, they said, I'm just not getting fed anymore, And they say, I want a women's group, or a men's group, or this or that. They said, well, we say, go ahead and do it. They said, no, we want you to do that. I think one of the things we don't realize is that not only do we need to be cared for, not only do we need a place where we belong, but we need to be in a place where we can use our gifts so that we can be part of doing something that makes a difference in the world. And even if we don't see it, we know it, we feel it. We start to feel like, I'm not being fed anymore. Well, it's not that you're not being fed, it's that you're not feeding others, and you need to also feed yourself, and we need to participate. If we don't, it becomes a very difficult journey. And I think one of the things that's hard, especially, is that we pastors get in the way, because, we like being the center. Because I'm the one I'm here to download to you everything you need. Are you ready? All right? And it's hard. I think this is the area probably we struggle with in some ways. We get in the way because we like being the ones that everybody comes to receive from us. We have this wisdom to share, and you just kind of, consume it. And it's hard to do, and especially in churches where, pastors there is paid staff. We get all our benefits and everything. So we like that. We go to care for people. In fact, our seminaries train pastors to be people who provide care. It's pastoral care and counseling, but not mission and focus beyond that. I'm going to lift up, there's a little slide here. This comes from a book called Emerging Worship. We've been kind of exploring emerging churches and what it means to be an emerging church. You can pick up, this is the slide. And this comes, we lost the top a little bit, sorry, we're working on the screen, but a book called Emerging Worship. And it's by, I have the name here. I think it's Dan Keller, but forgive me for not remembering. One of the things he talks about is what the church isn't. The church isn't a place or building you go to. Right? Now we've kind of experienced that even though we have a place we go to, it keeps changing. So we realize it's not about where we go, it's more about wherever disciples of Jesus are. We're here as disciples of Jesus. And it's not the weekend meeting where a sermon is delivered and some songs are sung. I think this is one of the hardest things for us, because we've been kind of trained. Sunday morning is that time and place. You know how much the rest of the week is? It's like 98.2% of the rest of the time of the week still out there. And yet we think this is the only time that we're the church. The church is really the groups of disciples who are meeting in homes and other smaller settings throughout the week, when we also gather in a larger meeting to worship together or on Sunday. Right? So this is more like the family reunion time, but the rest of the week we're out there being church, and a lot of times together exploring that. It's not Christians who go to a weekend meeting to get the religious goods and services. Right? We're not here just to get what we need and go on. It's about the worshipers of a local body who are on a mission together. That God has given us this mission together, and we want to be on it. It's not Christians who go to church on weekends to get the inspiration and feeding for the week, but the people of God who are passionately dependent upon God in worship and prayer all week long. And I think this is a hard thing. We struggle with this because it's been packaged into just this time. It's not Christians who ask, what does this church have to offer me? Remember John Kennedy? Ask, not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. We got to go that mindset that this is for us. It's disciples of Jesus who ask, how can I contribute and serve this local body in its mission? And the mission is what God has invited us to do in the world. It's not a place where Christians go to have pastors do spiritual things for them. Right? It's a community where pastors and leaders equip the people for the mission and to serve one another. It's not a place to bring your children and teenagers for their spiritual lessons while you receive your sermon and sing a few songs. It's a community where leaders help train you to teach your children the ways of God and incorporate children and youth into the community so they aren't isolated. I want to show a clip here. So what was that from? Hickman First Class, that's right. You see, what just happened? Yeah? He jumped up on the plane, right? Did anybody that he worked for know that he was a mutant? He was, no. He's working on the project about people like that, and no one there knows he's one because he said, you didn't ask, so I didn't tell, right? You could catch that, right? Okay, good. We caught that one. That's something to catch. And he's kind of uncomfortable with it. So he's in this place just talking with these guys, but he doesn't feel like he can share it. Now it's interesting, the blonde girl, what does she think about it? It's amazing. Now what's interesting, if you've seen the movie, is actually she doesn't look like that. Her gift is she can look like anybody. She's pretending to look like this girl, but she doesn't look like, she's like blue. She's got blue skin and and yeah, it's awesome, right? And part of the whole journey of the movie is her realizing that she needs to just be who she is, and that kind of helps her in this journey. I think we live in this culture where we're trained so much to try and blend into this consumer culture that we have a hard time letting go and just letting our gifts go out. So we struggle with that, and I think that's part of what's hard in our journey. I'm going to show another clip.